You finally land that dream job. The perfect partner says yes. Your bank account hits that magic number you've been chasing. Everything you've worked for is right there in your hands. So why does it feel like you are wearing a costume that doesn't quite fit? Why does this happiness feel more like a hotel room than home? Here is what nobody tells you, that uncomfortable feeling. It is not a glitch. Your brain is functioning exactly as evolution designed it. And once you decode what is really happening, you'll never look at happiness or misery the same way again. Let me blow your mind with a thought experiment. Imagine I am standing in front of you right now with a magical device. 2 buttons. Press the blue one and you'll experience nothing but pure bliss for the rest of your existence. Press the red one and you'll never feel discontent, sadness, or frustration ever again. Which button do you press? If you are like most people, you just hesitated. Maybe your gut twisted a little, because somewhere deep in your bones, you know that pressing either button would be like performing a lobotomy on your soul. But why? What exactly would you lose? That hesitation just revealed the biggest lie you've been told about what you actually want from life. Your conscious mind is like a well-meaning but clueless PR department. It keeps broadcasting these feel-good messages about happiness being the ultimate goal, while your unconscious mind, the real CEO, is running a completely different agenda. It is like finding out your body has been secretly working against your diet, because it knows something about survival that your conscious mind forgot. Think about Aldous Huxley's Brave New World. Remember when John basically gives society the finger? But I don't want comfort, he declares. I want God. I want poetry. I want real danger. I want freedom. I want goodness. I want sin. Huxley wasn't writing science fiction. He was exposing an uncomfortable truth about what humans actually crave when you strip away all the social programming. Now, let me tell you about Ludwig Wittgenstein, brilliant philosopher, absolute genius. Also, by his own account, miserable every single day of his life. We're talking clinical depression, crushing anxiety, self-hatred, so intense, it would make your worst day look like Disneyland. His personal journals read like a manifesto of human suffering, but here is where it gets weird. On his deathbed, surrounded by friends, his final words were, "Tell them, I've had a wonderful life." Your brain just did a double take, right? How does someone who spent 70 years in psychological torture call their life wonderful? Either he had the world's worst memory, or he understood something about existence that most of us are too scared to admit. Let's get real about what actually happens when you create something meaningful. Forget the TED Talk version, where passion meets purpose, and rainbows shoot out of your laptop. I am talking about the actual process, where you stare at a blank screen until your eyes bleed. Delete everything you created yesterday. Question every life choice that brought you to this moment. Feel like a fraud, an idiot, a waste of oxygen, and then, maybe, if you are lucky, after weeks of this self-imposed torture, something halfway decent emerges. What drives that process? Joy? Fulfillment? Hell no. It is the relentless, gnawing certainty that what you've created isn't good enough yet. Every masterpiece you've ever admired, it was born from someone's professional relationship with dissatisfaction. The better the final product, the more the creator probably hated everything that came before it. Here is the thing about the creative process. It is basically volunteering for psychological waterboarding. You could be doing literally anything else. Scrolling TikTok, binge-watching that new series everyone's talking about, getting those sweet dopamine hits from likes and comments. Instead, you choose to wrestle with uncertainty, self-doubt, and the constant companion of "this is garbage, and so am I." Why would any sane person do this? Because buried in that mountain of discontent is the only currency that actually matters in life. Meaning, and meaning, as it turns out, has a really complicated relationship with happiness. They're not enemies exactly, but they're definitely not the friends your self-help books promised they'd be. Enter Friedrich Nietzsche, the God is dead guy everyone quotes at parties to sound deep. But Nietzsche had this concept that changes everything once you really get it. He called it self-overcoming. Here is how it works. You create this ideal version of yourself, the Feinbermensch, which sounds way cooler in German than Superman. Then, you basically destroy and rebuild yourself trying to reach it. The moment you get close, you create a new ideal and start the whole brutal process again. Sounds like hell, right? That is because it kind of is. But according to Nietzsche, this endless cycle of destruction and creation is the only way to build a life that actually means something. The constant striving, the perpetual dissatisfaction, the never-ending upgrades, that is not a bug in your programming. That is the whole point of the program. But wait, it gets weirder. If creation needs desire and desire needs discontent, then we're basically addicted to our own dissatisfaction. We don't just want things, we want to keep wanting things. The worst possible fate isn't failing to get what you want. It is succeeding so completely that you have nothing left to want. Buddha dropped this truth. 2,500 years ago, desire is the root of suffering. But here is the plot twist Buddha didn't advertise. Maybe we don't want to end our suffering. Maybe we're so in love with our desires that we'd rather keep the pain that comes with them than give up the wanting itself. This explains basically everything confusing about human behavior. Why do lottery winners end up depressed? Why do people blow up their own success? Why does finally reaching your goals feel like the world's most expensive anticlimax? Because your brain isn't optimized for happiness. It is optimized for hunting. And hunting requires prey. Nietzsche noticed this pattern in young Europeans who couldn't handle their own comfort. They actually wanted disasters to strike, he observed, just so they'd have something worthy to fight against. They needed monsters so badly they'd imagine them into existence if necessary. Ring any bells? How many times have you gotten your life completely sorted, only to immediately start scanning for problems? How often do you manufacture drama where none exists, pick unnecessary fights, or create impossible standards just to give yourself something to struggle against? You are not crazy. You are not broken. You are human. And humans are meaning-making machines that run on high-octane discontent. Arthur Schopenhauer, the philosopher who makes Nietzsche look like a motivational speaker, said the secret to avoiding misery is to never expect happiness. But I think he missed the deeper insight. The secret isn't lowering your expectations. It is recognizing that you actually have an appetite for struggle. Once you understand that your discontent has a purpose, you can stop apologizing for it and start directing it. Now, this doesn't mean you should chase misery like it is Pokemon cards or reject happiness when it shows up at your door. That is just being confused in the opposite direction. The real insight is understanding that happiness and meaning aren't the same thing. Sometimes they overlap, often they don't. And that is perfectly fine. Think of happiness like rest days at the gym. Feels amazing, absolutely necessary. But if that is all you did, you'd turn into a blob. The burn, the exhaustion, the part where you want to quit, that is where transformation happens. And just like with training, the people who build extraordinary lives are the ones who learn to find something weirdly satisfying in the struggle itself. This is why Wittgenstein could survey a life of unrelenting misery and call it wonderful. Not because misery itself is wonderful, that is masochism, not philosophy. But because he transformed his suffering into fuel for breakthrough insights. His dissatisfaction with easy answers pushed him to revelations that revolutionized human thought. Would any of that have happened if he'd been content? Not a chance. Let's be crystal clear about something. There is a Grand Canyon-sized difference between the kind of productive discontent that drives growth and the kind of clinical depression that destroys lives. Understanding the philosophical value of struggle doesn't mean you should skip therapy, ignore mental health, or romanticize genuine psychological illness. This isn't about glamorizing suffering or pretending all pain has purpose. Sometimes suffering is just suffering and it needs professional treatment. The point is that once you've handled the basics, decent health, stable finances, a few solid relationships, that remaining restlessness might not be a disorder. It might be your engine. So what do you actually do with this brain-breaking information? How do you navigate life once you realize your mind is basically running an elaborate practical joke where it makes you crave things it has no intention of letting you enjoy? First, You can finally stop feeling defective for not being happy 24/7. That Pinterest perfect life everyone's pretending to live, even if it were real, spoiler, it is not. Your brain would find 17 things wrong with it within 72 hours. That is not a flaw. That is the feature working as intended. Second, you can start being strategic about your struggles. If you are going to be discontent anyway, and you are, you might as well be discontent about something that matters. Instead of letting your brain manufacture random problems, like some kind of misery lottery, you can point it at targets worth hitting. Third, you can treat happiness like a sunset, gorgeous when it happens, impossible to hold on to, and not meant to last forever. Enjoy it fully when it arrives, but don't try to build a house there. But here is the real paradigm shift. You can start seeing your entire existence as an art project instead of a happiness maximization equation. Every single day, you are adding layers to this bizarre, complex painting that is your life. Some days the painting looks like garbage. Some days you want to burn it and start fresh. But if you keep going, keep refining, keep being productively dissatisfied, you might create something that makes you think on your last day, yeah, that was worth the trouble. The purpose of life isn't happiness. It is not even success by any conventional measure. The purpose is to use your factory-installed discontent as rocket fuel to build something that, when the credits roll, you can call wonderful. Not because it was easy or pleasant, but because you transformed all that struggle into something meaningful. So next time you feel that familiar itch of discontent, that whisper that something's missing even when everything's theoretically fine, don't panic. Don't immediately medicate it with distractions or positive thinking. Sit with it. Listen to what it is trying to tell you, because that feeling isn't your enemy. It is the force that has powered every worthwhile thing humanity has ever created. Your brain craves misery because misery creates meaning, and meaning, not happiness, is what makes a life wonderful, especially if that life is difficult, complicated, and shot through with struggle from the opening scene to the final curtain. This is the human condition. It is messy, it is contradictory, and it makes no logical sense, but it is our mess. And once you understand the operating system, you can stop fighting your nature and start harnessing it to build something extraordinary, even if you are miserable the entire time you are building it. Actually, especially then, because that is when you know you are doing it right. Welcome to the only game in town. The rules are insane, the scoring system makes no sense, and nobody really wins. But somehow, if you play it right, you can look back and say it was wonderful. Tell them you had a wonderful life. Even if, especially if, you suffered beautifully the whole way through.